Good morning, Mark Jones. You got a haircut, my
I
friend.
did.
Looking good. It is halfway through March, and I guess the official spring is 7 days away. I don't know. We're in
Yeah,
the
we're
spring
almost there.
market, right?
It's
All
also
right.
almost the end of the first quarter rather, so it's kind of scary how fast it's going.
No kidding, right? All right. Well, what's the feeling in the marketplace right now? Before I put the numbers up, what's the feeling out there?
I know the feeling that I've been talking to people about is they're seeing a lot more activity right now.
Okay, and what are they, when they say activity, what do they mean?
People calling them, people getting into the market, not necessarily the sales activity, but it's the activity that happens before the sale. The people calling saying, I'm ready to do something. I want to talk to you about listing my home, that kind of thing.
I love it. Okay. Let's jump. So we are fact checking that feeling, right? So let's fact check. And before I go into the numbers, Mark, I want to put this up on the screen. So the interest rates as of close Friday, a week ago were 6.14 and they closed Friday at 6.41. So that's a considerable jump, right?
Mhm.
Yet it's still a great rate. So one of my questions, whether it's Iran or Ukraine or what, or oil prices or whatever, it's certainly affecting this mortgage rate a little bit, right?
For sure.
Yet I like to always point out 6% 15-year fixed and under six if you're dealing with a medium price property are great rates. And then 6.6 on the jumbo is a pretty good interest rate on a jumbo mortgage. So we're still got good rates, but there
Hmm.
certainly was a significant, I say significant, 0.25, a quarter of a point increase over the last week in mortgage
Right.
rates. And I'm wondering if people are out there talking about it. Are you hearing people talk about it, or is it kind of a mute point right now?
I feel like there's not a lot of discussion about rates. I think people are now kind of looking at their individual situations and making decisions based on that. That doesn't mean there aren't people out there that are concerned about it, but I haven't heard it as a big topic of discussion.
Yeah. So we'll check, right? Like let's jump into the numbers and see what we're seeing here. So 623 active status changes Fulton County. Pretty big number. So there's a lot of inventory changes coming on the market. 164 went under contract in the last 7 days. That's a big number. And it's the largest we've seen year to date of properties in a week span going under contract. We've got 299 that are currently pending, which is really healthy, and 266 closed out in the last 7 days. In the middle of the month, largest 7 day total year to date, Fulton County. So what you're saying, Mark, is a lot of the leading indicators there, people are busy, more people walking into open houses, more showings, more phone calls, right?
Right.
um, Certainly is holding true in Fulton County in what we're seeing, right?
Hmm.
Any thoughts?
No, it's kind of nice to see that that's, playing out and that, the spring market is still doing its thing.
It's climbing, right? All right, DeKalb County, we had 343 active status changes. 84 went under contract, so still big number, but DeKalb seems a little more stable than some of the other counties. Like they started with 95, dipped into the 70s, sitting at 84 now. So it's not as big of a county, right? Like the sample size is not as big,
Right.
but they had 177 in the pending status right now with 191 closed out, which is a huge number
That's a big close number.
for DeKalb County. So still the same kind of feeling like, yeah, we're spring market, we're doing our thing, we're climbing up, the market's getting better. And we're climbing into that spring selling season. But DeKalb seems really strong as well. And if we run down to Cobb County, 337 active status changes, 114 went under contract. So same story, right? Largest
Hmm.
week, 7-day total properties going under contract. They've got 182, which is a big number. And they had 199. They just couldn't do one extra and get to 200 mark.
Right,
Uh, but huge week for closings in all three of the big counties, right?
for sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's nice to see a big week for closings, not only in the last weekend of the month.
Yeah. And spring break disrupts the numbers every year, right? So
Mhm.
that's coming, but we're not there yet. So these are just really, really good numbers. I want to take just a quick minute. I don't always point out, but if you're on the realestatestats.com, we track all the counties. So whether you're doing business in Paulding or Cherokee or Henry or Douglas or even Floyd County up in Rome, we've got the data for all these counties. And I'll just pick one. Let's go to Paulding. So if you've got a buyer looking in Paulding County, you can come in here and do the exact same thing. You can go, all right, they had 99 active, they had 24 go under contract, big numbers. They currently have 60 pending. And look, they had 54 close out this week and 71 the week before.
Yeah.
So it gives you that local, hyper local data, depending on where you're doing business, right?
Hmm.
All right. Anything else on the numbers before we jump into the articles?
I don't think we're good.
All right. This is an FYI article. Um, if you're an agent in this day and age, most of our agents are doing some kind of internet lead generation strategy to their business, whether they're buying leads or doing Facebook meta ads or whatever, right?
Right.
Well, homes.com is certainly a thing we've talked about a lot over the last couple of weeks. This article is talking about this hedge fund, DE Shaw, is the one that's on the board at CoStar that's given them a lot of slack for their homes.com performance. So, what you need to know is there's corporate struggle going on about homes.com. But more importantly, this same hedge fund owns part of Zillow and owns part of other aggregators. So their motivations might be a little interesting. But what I found interesting about this article, Mark, is CoStar, which is the big commercial MLS, is the parent company, but they own homes.com and apartments.com.
Yep.
And apartments.com is a smashing success for them. So, what this investor is upset about is they've changed their reporting and they've lumped apartments.com and homes.com together in
Mhm.
how they report the data.
Right.
So, what I've paid attention to recently is if you watch TV ever, there used to be apartments.com commercials and there used to be homes.com commercials. And now it's homes.com and apartment.com's commercials together. So they're
Mm.
certainly kind of putting them in the same strategy to stack their marketing around homes.com and apartments.com. And our agents tell us, and you guys can certainly chime in here, but homes.com doesn't specifically sell leads, it sells placement on listings. And the agents are saying they're starting to get some really good leads from their placement on homes.com. And not in this article, but in recent articles, we know that the realtor.com is actually increasing right now. Zillow's still the big player. But I bring this up because I think a chunk of our agents, if not more than half, play some kind of internet lead generation strategy, right?
Right.
And it's more just an awareness. Anything you'd add, Mark?
Now, when Homes.com, when the new CEO took over, they made some pretty bold claims about what they were going to do over the next year or two, and I think they're not seeing the success that they had promised. So they're sort of combining the numbers to kind of obfuscate that a little bit, which, is understandable.
Oh, 100%, right? All right. Moving on. So let's spend a little time on this article, Mark.
Mm,
This article talks about deferred maintenance is costing agents deals. And I'm going to guess, because I don't have the actual data, but if out of every 10 listings, I would say six or seven have some kind of major repair, deferred maintenance challenge with it.
right.
And I think there's two sides to this coin. Well, there's really three sides. There's before it becomes a listing, how do you become that professional resource to your database where you have trusted fair price contractors? You know, for instance, on my house, I'm replacing a section of fence. Well,
Hmm.
I reached out to a couple people that I know and said, like, who's your best reputable fence company, right? Like, I'm a
Right.
homeowner. I need to have a professional relationship for resources like that. But more importantly, the listing. So 3 years ago, Mark, you could list a house that had some deferred maintenance issue. The market was so hot, the buyer didn't put as much weight on it, and it wasn't really a thing. And as our real estate market heats up and cools off in terms of buyer market, seller's market over time, right? And this deferred maintenance certainly is has heavier weight in certain markets, and we're moving into a market where deferred maintenance has more weight inside the transaction.
For sure.
So the question is, if you're a listing agent, do you how do you handle this with a seller? And do you recommend a pre-listing inspection? Do you recommend making repairs prior to going on the market? And I think it is very much a professional suggestion to do so. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a big fan of pre-listing inspections, and right now it's so easy for buyers to get cold feet in the middle of a transaction once they do the inspection when something shows up that they weren't expecting. So, I've heard the argument that you don't want to do a pre-listing inspection because then the seller has to disclose whatever they find. Well, wouldn't you rather they know it before there's a buyer on the line and they have a chance to do something about it without killing a deal? And I think that's my perspective is I'd much rather get that stuff cleaned up and taken care of ahead of time, um, versus finding that out when the buyer does their home inspection. Now, the downside right now is there's a lot of people that bought in the last 3 years that don't really have a lot of equity, to be able to do much with their home, and they might be a little bit cash poor. So I think there's going to be some homes out there that, as much as they'd like to do it, they just can't.
Yeah, I think that's very true. One and two, I think this is where our seller's edge product really assists our agents. So it's funny to me. I feel like we've talked till we were blue in the face about this seller's edge, listing concierge product. And I inevitably, every time I'm speaking somewhere, an agent's like, "Oh, I've not heard of that." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh." So if you're not aware, we have a line of credit product for a seller. They have to qualify, but up to $50,000. And last I checked, if they needed to replace an HVAC or a roof or something along those lines, Luke dropped the link to it in the chat for your information. Um, that would be a very strategic product to position a listing prior to going on the market, right? And get those
Yeah.
repairs done.
I just think it's a differentiator in the marketplace too. So like I feel like every listing agent, when they're talking with sellers, should be talking about having that product, even if it's not something you end up using. It's just a further differentiator to show that you're a full service professional and you have this arsenal of tools to be able to help sellers in any situation.
100%. So let's flip the coin for a second. As I was thinking about this article when I sent it to you yesterday, Mark, from a buyer perspective,
Hmm.
um, I'm gonna guess a not I don't know what percentage I'd throw at this, but I'm going to guess there's buyers taking their inspection report and dumping it in AI and asking AI what they should do these days.
100%.
And AI is a very logical uh, analyzer. And I actually think that could cause you problems as a real estate agent, meaning a normal buyer consultation is we're not going to mess with cosmetics. We're going to mess with functional, big ticket item kind of conversation around inspection reports. But
Hmm.
I would think that if you don't talk to your buyer prior to them receiving that inspection report about that conversation, that could really kill a deal.
Yeah. And
Are you
honestly,
hearing this, Mark? I just thought of this yesterday. Like, I bet you they're doing it.
yeah, I definitely think people are putting in ChatGPT or whatever AI system they use. And also, we've talked a lot about this at our masterminds in my office, and we have a lot of agents now giving a sample inspection report to buyers during their buyer consultation. So the first time they lay eyes on a 70 plus page report detailing all the problems in a house, it's not the one on their house that they're interested in. So they
Oh, I love
understand that
that.
like they always look a little bit scary. There's always a lot of things on there, but that doesn't mean that there's necessarily they're all major. They're just all issues. Every house has issues. Even the best new construction will come back with issues on an inspection report. So helping set the expectation of that on the front end is super important. And part of that is, being prepared to talk about how AI can help you as a buyer and, you know, explaining also that it can only do so much because AI can't really differentiate between big issues and little issues. It just sees items that need to be repaired and items that don't need to be repaired. So like helping them understand what's important and what's not, and what's expensive and what's not, is where we come in. And I think we should always be at the inspection report asking questions like that of the home inspector to help set the expectation of what that repair looks like.
Mark, I'm listening to you talk. I think this is a genius strategy. I almost wonder if you don't put together a case study of an inspection and then show them this is what the inspection report is. This was our advice. This is what we actually negotiated to get repaired. And you hand that case study to a buyer pre-inspection, right? At the buyer
Yeah.
consultation. Instead of just handing them an inspection report, maybe you put a case study around it to
Mm,
actually talk about how you help negotiate those repairs.
for sure.
I love it. Uh, but we've had articles on this industry update before where we were talking about the cancellation rate of contracts has grown.
Right.
And this has certainly got to be a big part of this.
For sure. Yeah, anything that comes up during an inspection report, and deferred maintenance is always going to be one of those things. And it can scare people. And a lot of deferred maintenance is water related. And water, as you know, is like the biggest thing that can damage a home. So it can scare people into not buying that property.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yep.
All right. Open houses. I love this article for a couple of reasons. One, it's not how to do an open house. This article actually speaks to a different um, thing about open houses. What it speaks to is it says the consumer obviously is coming to look at a property, but they're actually judging the agent on first impressions.
Right.
And what percent, if there were 10 buyers that walked into an open house, Mark, what percentage of those buyers do you think are unrepresented?
Probably 20 to 30%.
Oh, I would have said 60 or 70.
It depends on the area.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. But regardless, you have one shot. And this article is talking about how agents create a first impression. So it's no different than like when you're walking into a restaurant, you're asking, you're paying attention. Is the host attentive? Is the table clean? Is the menu clear? Right? Like you pay attention to those things. We've all walked into a Mexican restaurant with salsa, dried salsa on the menu. You know what I mean? Like it's part of the impression.
Mhm.
But for a open house, um, directional signages are part of the first impression, right? Um, the property is at stage, is the lights turned on, temperature controlled, are the printed materials professional, or you just have photocopy flyers on there? Um, the question every agent should ask themselves before unlocking that front door: if a broker or appraiser walked in right now, would I be proud of what they see? If the answer is anything less than yes, the open house isn't ready. There's a five
Brett,
minute rule. Yeah.
I would like to add something to the first one, signage. One of the compliments I've gotten at open houses is my signage. They were like, "We didn't even know there was an open house in this area, but your signage was great." So
Oh,
I
well
just
done.
encourage people to really lean in on that because it does matter.
100% it matters. And, in the book Ship, there's a section called the seven level open house, I believe.
Mhm.
Um, and it talks very much about this, right? Like that skill set. And the reason I think this is such a important article right now is because I think open houses, have become more popular as of late. I think the younger generation is very experiential. I think all generations are experiential, but um, we're really seeing this as a great lead gen source. Um, Obviously, the first 5 minutes where trust is won or lost, when a buyer crosses the threshold, the clock starts. Um, they form lasting impressions within seconds. In those first 5 minutes in open house, the visitor is asking three silent questions: do I feel welcome? Do I feel informed? And do I feel safe? It's all about being that professional greeting, right? So, Mark, how do you coach agents? What's the greeting at the open house?
I the biggest thing I talk to people about is being themselves and being authentic because if they're not comfortable, they're going to come across as awkward and nervous, and that's the worst thing they can do. So, I mean, the best thing to do is to just be yourself and make sure that when they walk in, that you're greeting them, telling them your name, and letting them know your relationship to the house. If you're the listing agent, let them know that. If you're not the listing agent and you're just there helping someone else out, go ahead and say that because it does create some separation for you to let them know I'm just helping the listing agent out. So if you have any questions, let me know. If I don't know, I'll find out the answer for you. But, I do have a good bit of information on the property. So just doing that alone can help create some distance between you and the listing so people don't see you as trying to sell the listing to them.
Yeah. Um, Agency disclosure conversation, it can't be optional, obviously. Being the expert in the room, not just the bedroom count and square footage, but the age of the roof, the type of HVAC, the school district boundaries. Be prepared, right? Not just show up and not know the house.
Yeah, you should know the neighborhood. You should know the comps in the area. You should know what else is on the market actively right now, and you should know where to get all that information on the property that you are doing the open house at.
I suggest going out like a day or two before and just peruse the area, take a look at the property itself. If it's vacant, of course, make a showing. But just understand the area, even the traffic flow. It helps.
Mhm.
Hmm.
That's
Absolutely.
super important, Pamela. I totally agree with you. Like, I think that's just a standard part of preparation that we don't always do. I'm guilty of it myself. I've done open houses before where I showed up, 30 minutes prior to the open house and, running around, sweating, trying to get, lights on and doors open and blinds pulled up. And that's not the way to do an open house, honestly. You should do your homework, understand the neighborhood, understand the area, understand the amenities in the area, and then certainly understand the house.
Hey, Brett.
Perfect. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to see Phil Jones at Family Reunion. He did an amazing session on open houses and the script. Mark, did you happen to see him?
I didn't see that one, no.
He was incredible, the scripts, and and what we know is all wrong.
What,
And I don't
give us an example.
Oh gosh. Just how you ask, and Doug chime in here, Doug was with me, just how you ask easy questions for them to answer instead of kind of putting them at, I don't know, you're talking to a stranger. It was a whole hour and a half session of specifically guiding the potential buyer through the process. And it was probably one of the best things I've ever seen on open houses.
Love
Nice.
it.
I don't know if
Love
we
it.
have access to that any place in our arsenals, but it would certainly be well. Um,
If somebody AI recorded it, I would die for a copy of that.
it was great.
Yeah.
Could put
Follow up.
together, Brett, I could put together my notes and maybe send it to Luke so he can put it out there for everyone in the circle.
That
That'd
would
be
be
great,
great.
Doug.
Luke, give me
Um,
24 hours to do that. Because he did it was an acronym for an 8-part formula to put together a conversational script for an open house. And it basically is usable in any conversations you're having, like in an event, networking, open house. It talks how you can take the conversation to a conversion of an appointment. So.
Doug, you the man. Last thing is the follow-up's part of the experience. So today's Monday. My suspicion is people get sign-ins at open houses and they do their follow-up today on Monday. But one of the strategies I've heard is people call them the same day. So if they came on Sunday, they call them Sunday afternoon and say, I just want to thank you so much for attending our open house. Is there anything I could have done to improve your experience? Is there any questions you might have? And that professional prompt follow up is certainly part of how people are selling houses left and right. So I'll leave that there. Quick talking point. If you're not aware, this article's on Market Watch. We'll post it in Circle. But HOA fees are becoming a bigger and bigger thing. People are charging higher, property management or yeah, property management companies are charging more and more for HOAs, and it's just becoming a thing in our industry. You can read this article, but I want to make sure I hit this one. So, did you get a chance to read this one, Mark?
Actually couldn't read that one because it requires a subscription.
Well, I'm not going to sign in, but here's the article. We'll get you a copy of it. It says, living on the outskirts of Atlanta is about to be pricier than living in the city. So if you're not aware, like if somebody's going to live in Roswell or Alpharetta or Marietta, the price of those houses are now almost comparable to the same price of the same size house in the city. And at some point in time, I wish I could sign in. There's a new word here. Doesn't like me. There's a new word they used.
Exurbs.
Exurbs. Yes. Did
Click the I agree button in the bottom corner.
there we go. All right. Yeah. Exurban. Exurban. So Atlanta is the only large metropolitan area in the nation where exurban home prices are poised to exceed those of the core area. So you can see the dark blue line is really close to the light blue line, which is the cost of living in the city versus out of the city. There's always been a gap. It's always been cheaper to be living in the suburbs. But Atlanta is getting really close to, I don't know, it's a good talking point for social media, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of that's driven by schools. The people do move to the suburbs because of the schools often. And there are some really great schools in Atlanta in the close-in suburbs. So I think that's driven a lot of demand for those areas.
Yeah. So there's your industry update, guys. Any questions, last comments? Mark, you get the last word.
I would just say, right now is when everyone is out there. So just be in front of as many people as you can and capitalize on opportunities while the market is in spring mode.
There you go. Love it. Happy Monday, guys.
Take care.
Bye.